Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the Amarian Talk Show, and I'm your host, Arisiaka Marian. My today's guest gonna share with. Honestly, I have no words to express what you're gonna share with because only the words authentic self, for me, it's like it gives me chills. So you're
Thank
gonna
you.
teach us or at least tell us how to become authentic selves.
Thank you.
Hello, Megan.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Let's take the audience through our journey and have them be a part of our conversation.
Oh my God, I feel so much calmness from you.
Thank
I'm
you.
speaking with you and I'm like, okay, chill, just chill. That's crazy. I went through your Instagram and one of the latest posts says that 15 months ago, you went through some exciting journey, life-changing journey.
Yes.
Can you please share with that?
Yes, of course. There came a point in my life about 15 months ago where the internal suffering reached a point where I couldn't find any joy. And my whole life was about doing and achieving, creating a bucket list of things I wanted to achieve. But then the price I was paying for that was too high because it was not joyful. One night I thought to myself, was the whole point of creation coming to this world of form? Was the whole point just to suffer and to achieve? Because if that was the whole point, I'm not sure I want to be a part of the world of form. And obviously you go through all these questions of, okay, then what should I do with myself if I don't want to be a part of this rat race of suffering and achieving and suffering and achieving? What's my purpose? I couldn't find my purpose. And that was the night that I felt like for the first time ever, I died because the person that was alive in this world of form was no longer serving me. Whatever I was doing, what vibrational energy, what energy level I was vibrating on was no longer serving me because it was just suffering. And everything I was achieving, the joy was so short-lived, only to shortly after I would get distracted by the next drama or the next thing that would upset me. Because once you achieve something, then you have to worry about, oh, how am I going to keep it? What if I lose it? What if somebody thinks this way? What do others perceive me as? And that was the night that I decided that I want to die as that person. Whoever that person was, whatever energy level she was vibrating on, it was time for her to leave my body.
Incredible.
And the next morning when I woke up, the first thing I saw on TV, I was watching Oprah, and she was talking about a woman, her name is Dr. Shefali, and she's devoted to awakening women. The second I heard that, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then this is around the time that I'm trying to be rebirthed again. I wanted to come back to this world of form, but with a whole new perception. I needed a clean slate. And I reached out to her. I reached out to Dr. Shefali and I said, hey, I feel like I just died and I just woke up. How can you help me? And then the journey began.
Crazy. I mean, that sounds crazy and beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, crazy because when you think about with your rational mind, you're like, I don't understand. But then when you think about with your inner world, you're like, that's so beautiful. Because yes, if you want something new come, something has to die.
Correct.
But in a good way.
Correct.
You know?
Yes.
You mentioned the word purpose. Now it's like top 10 most usable words ever. Please explain to our viewers what true purpose means.
Well, when we come to this world, obviously we're in the biological world of form, right? And I can't imagine that this whole reincarnation, this whole world of form, was created just for humanity to achieve and to suffer and to get into the rat race and the drama. Because I think this whole thing is much bigger and much more vast than just a bunch of dramatic people just getting entangled with each other, right? So then there are things in life that you want to do for the mental image. Oh, I want to have that big house, or I want to have that amazing car, but there's nothing wrong with wanting those things. But what is wrong, can be wrong with that, is that if you're chasing after a mental image of, oh, this is what I want to achieve because then I will live in this bigger house and every morning I'll wake up and my house is big and everybody will come to watch me. This a mental image would have to end at some point. Because once you have the mental image, then you need a new mental image. And once you achieve that mental image, then there's always a bigger, better mental image, which means that in between jumping from one mental image to another, you will suffer. Because, okay, let's say you achieve the big house, right? Now you need a bigger house. And in between moving from here to there, you're going to suffer because you go, oh, how am I going to create this? How am I going to...
The point of crisis.
The point of crisis.
Yeah, between that image.
And then as long as you're chasing a mental image internally within you, deep inside of your heart, you might not feel that joy that you've been looking for. What do I mean by that joy? That joy is that ecstatic feeling of when you were a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old playing on the street with mud and dirt and talking to other people, and it was just this joy from within. You were running around, dancing around without even thinking.
Yeah.
Now, as long as you're chasing after that mental image, despite whatever you achieve, that joy is not within you.
Yeah.
Your purpose is supposed to guide you through that joy and take you back to that joy. Basically, we come to this world of form to serve a purpose in this body, to go back to the joy. So I was thinking to myself, how can I align with my higher self to a point where instead of achieving a mental image, I can fulfill something that would lead me back to the point of joy.
Right.
And I think for people, for the audience, if you're wondering what you're doing, in the doing dimension, if you're fulfilling a purpose or if you're just achieving a mental image, go within.
Yeah.
See if this is something that nobody can answer for you other than yourself.
No one.
Go within, deep in your, whatever they call it, is the heart, is it whatever, your true essence. How do you feel internally? Does it give you joy? Do you feel nurtured? Or are you just worried about making sure you maintain a good mental image?
How to understand, is that your true desire? That house or the second house or whatever it is, you know? We're mentioning the house because it's probably the most wanted thing. Yeah, but how to understand where is your true desires and where is the society's images or parents, your parents want from you, or etc., etc. How to understand that?
Ask yourself these questions. When you are embarking on a new journey in the dimension of doing, ask yourself, why am I doing this? And then you might first say, because I want a big house. Why? I'm using the house example because it's probably the most relatable.
The most.
Why do I want the big house? Because I want a lot of people? Let's say.
Yeah.
Why do I want a lot of people? Because I want to feel nurtured and not lonely. Now, why do I feel lonely?
Yeah, exactly.
You need to keep going deeper and deeper and see what it is that you're after, because it's never just a house. It's never just a mental image. There's something you're trying to fulfill, a deeper need within you. Are you doing all this because you're trying to fulfill the need for intimacy? Yeah. Well, then maybe instead of doing things from the outside in, why not doing it from inside out? Once you recognize what that need is that you're going after, what that fulfillment, and I'm not saying need in terms of the wants of this world, the internal need, which is the joy, which is a fulfillment, then your perspective will shift. Instead of saying, I want the house to feel joyful, you're like, I want to feel joyful. Now, let's see what are the things in the world, the form, that can support that feeling of joy, that can lead me towards my true self. Now, when I'm doing something, when I'm embarking on any activities, check in with yourself. Is it coming from a place of joy or is it coming from a place of fear? Yeah, if it's coming from a place of fear, it's chasing after mental image. It's the ego. And eventually it'll come back to fear. Once the genesis of an activity is fear, it has no choice but to come back to its genesis, which is fear. Meaning, for the fear of looking good, I'm going to buy a house, okay? Now, once I have the house, I'm fearful because what if I lose it? And then what would people think of me? But if the root of your why is joy, then every step of the way you check in with yourself. Is this making me feel joyful?
Exactly. That's such an important question. I mean, sometimes we forget asking that because I don't know what is that. I don't want to blame on anything because my life philosophy is any action I take, that's my responsibility. I mean, even I took some advice, that's my responsibility. I took that advice. So that's why I don't want to blame on society, parents, or friends. Anyway, how do we recognize where is where that desire comes from the place of fear and where it comes from the place of joy?
It's your why.
Why?
It's not about what you're doing, it's about why you're doing it. And the only way to find your why is to go deeper, layer by layer. I want this mental image. Why do I want this mental image? Because I want to feel happy. Why does that make me feel happy? Because more people will come and love me. Why do I need to be so loved? And as you go deeper and deeper, you get an answer that perhaps there's something within you that's not fulfilled. The cup within you is not fulfilled. And as long as you're waiting for external sources to fill in your internal cup, it's exactly like if a waterfall is cascading over us right now and is pouring water on us. But if our hands are not open, if we're not open to receiving, it can just be poured away and nothing will go within. So if there is something within you that's calling out you and saying, hey, I'm not fulfilled. I want to go back to the joy. I want to go back to where I came from, which was joy, the point of joy.
Yeah.
You need to fill that in from the inside by asking your why. And the deeper you go into your why, the path will open up itself. You no longer need to hustle. You no longer need to go outside to find resources to fill in your internal cup.
Such a good words. Exactly. When we're looking for internal resources, in that point, we don't believe it ourselves.
Yeah.
We think that someone gonna come and help us. Yeah. Some magician, some person, someone. That's an amazing word.
And don't get me wrong, someone can and will help us in the world of form. The truth is, if you ask for one thing that I really want your audience to be aware of, if you need help, if you have the courage to say, I need help, somebody will help you, but you need to want to get help. That's the first step. Now, second step, let's say somebody does help you, but if your why, if the reason for asking for help is not coming from the place of fulfillment, wanting to fulfill your purpose, even that will be very short-lived. Somebody will come, give you a glass of water, say, hi, my darling, I need you to have a glass of water so you can calm down. Momentarily, you will calm down. But then it goes back to, am I fulfilled on the inside? Do I feel joyful on the inside?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because sometimes in that rat race that you also mentioned, we forget about joy. Joy becomes some extra thing that it's a bonus.
Correct.
I will get it tomorrow, like other day. I can get joy anytime. I can get joy from the food for some external thing.
Correct. And I think one main thing that I come across myself on my daily life, which when something presents itself to me so intensely, I think perhaps there's a lesson in there for me. Yeah. Recently, I've been presented with a lot of people that cannot find joy in their lives. And deep within, they don't believe that they deserve joy because they have a mental image about how life should be, which is suffering, suffering, suffering. Okay.
Wow.
And let me tell you, as long as you have that belief system that the world should be about suffering and the joy should be short-lived, you're going to prove yourself right.
Always.
Because humanity has sovereignty. Humanity is the highest creation in the world of form in terms of having willpower, right?
That's true.
So whatever you want, you believe in, you're going to achieve. And if you believe in that your life or your world should be about suffering and joy should be short-lived, you're going to prove yourself right.
Absolutely.
So it's really important that you decide if you want your life to be about suffering and suffering and suffering, or there comes a point where you say, enough of suffering. And that's the first crack into your awakening. That's the first moment that the ego cracks so the light of being can penetrate, can come in. When you decide that you had enough of suffering.
Օմորֆիա բարձրակարգ գեղեցկության սրահն իր դռներն է բացել բոլոր նրանց համար, ովքեր հոգատար եւ խնամքով են վերաբերվում իրենց արտաքին տեսքին։ Գեղեցկության ծառայություններ, վարսահարդարում, մատնահարդարում, պեդիկյուր, դիմահարդարում, թարթիչների լիցք, լամինացիա եւ այլն։ Խորհրդատվության եւ գրանցվելու համար զանգահարեք 818 649 10 19։
𝐀𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐚 Boutique ժամանակակից եւ դասական ոճի նմուշներ, ներմուծող եվրոպական տարբեր երկրներից, որոնք կգոհացնեն ցանկացած տարիքի կանանց պահանջները իրենց բարձր որակով, վառ գույներով ամենօրյա եւ երեկոյան զգեստներ։ 𝐀𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐚 Boutique
𝐀𝐦 Smart Blinds, հիշեք այս անունը, շերտավարակույրներ, շուկայի նորագույն լիթիում մարտկոցներով։ Մեր համակարգերը կառավարվում են Google եւ Alexa համակարգերով։ Գույների հսկայական ընտրանի, 𝐀𝐦 Smart Blinds, շուկայի ամենացածր գները։ Մեր մասնագետների օգնությամբ ձեր առանձնատները, աշխատավայրը, բնակարանը կստանա բոլորովին նոր տեսք։ Զանգահարեք 818 281 81 36։ 𝐀𝐦 Smart Blinds.
We speak about such spiritual things that usually for centuries came from religion, you know,
Correct.
because suffering is one of the most popular concepts of Christianity. Not suffering is one of the most popular concept of Buddhism. And it's so interesting because now we came to the point when we have that new division spirituality that can give us that insights without using any books, let's call it like that. I'm not underestimating. No, as you said, system of beliefs is very important thing. And you can shift it from suffering to joy.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So tell us, please, where was your point? Maybe what's happened in your life when it shifted?
I lost my beloved father when I was 19, and he was taken away from me. He was killed in Iran.
I'm sorry.
And I went on this never-ending journey to finding someone or something on the outside that could fill the emptiness that I was feeling on the inside. Because his loss left such a big hole in my ego that no matter how much I was trying to fill my empty cup from the outside, it was not getting full. And it reached a point where I felt like no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to be able to fill that hole. And the suffering reached to a point of, do I want to accept my life to be this rat race of suffering, trying to fill my internal empty cup from the outside? I was just going from one person to another, looking for external validation, looking for love in the external world, in men, in women, in anybody that I could find. But as long as you're looking for that love on the outside, it can never be enough. Because as I said, it's about there is a cup. Imagine if there's a cup inside of your heart, right? Shielded by your skin. No matter how much water you pour from the outside, it cannot go inside of your heart. So then the suffering reached a point that I could no longer tolerate it. And I decided that that was enough, that I do not want to choose a life of suffering. And from that moment, you first look around, and then you start to look within.
Oh, God, oh my God, I got chills. I was that close to cry. That's such an amazing journey. And you explained it so well. I think our viewers even visualized and that cup and how you shifted your perspective.
I want them to go within just for a second, even right now with us. Your heart
Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah.
Your heart is obviously in the world of form, is shielded with a very thick layer of skin and veins and all that. So if I were to pour this cup on my chest, and imagine there's an empty hole in my heart, it's never going to get full, is it? No. Now, let's talk about our daily activities and say, I want to check mark things off my bucket list, right? What is the correlation? What is the connection between the things I'm trying to achieve and this empty hole in the heart?
Yeah.
Are they getting close to each other? How close are they? How close are my doing activities to what's going on here?
Right.
Because this heart is aching for joy. This heart is right now begging you to stop making your heart suffer. You owe it to this. You owe it to your higher self. We call it the heart. We call it universal consciousness. We call it your higher self. You owe it to that person. Yeah. And all you can do is every time you're about to do an activity or add another thing on your bucket list, ask yourself, why am I doing that? Am I doing that because there is something in here that needs to be fulfilled? Okay. Now, is that activity aligned with what I really need on the inside?
Right.
Recognize that. People are scared of going within. Yes, when you go within, it's dark. It's painful.
Very.
There's a lot of suffering. But you have the choice of suppressing it and keep pushing the dirt under the rug.
It goes on your shadow.
It goes in your shadow. Keep going. Keep adding layers to it. Or saying, why don't I start pouring some water on it? Yeah. And then the dirt will come up little by little, and it will eventually clean up. It will.
It will. Yeah, it's a work. It's like our daily job. It's also a job. You have to do it persistent, consistent, and understand that it's actually the most important job you have to do.
Instead of having your bucket list tell you what you need on the inside, understand what you need on the inside, and this by itself will develop into your bucket list and purpose. Then your bucket list will be developed coming from the genesis of, I want to align with joy. I am on my path of evolving and aligning with my higher self and joy. Then that's the real bucket list. Because then what you need to do in the world of doing comes to you naturally. You do receive guidance. Because your guidance, your measure of success is joy. Am I feeling joy? If I'm sitting right here, am I feeling joy? Or am I here because I'm fearful of something? Or because I'm trying to achieve something?
Right, incredible. And Megan, please tell us about your project that you do. The project that helps women to find their authentic selves.
I got a lot of help in my journey of feeling more joyful at heart, because I don't know where I am in my journey. All I can tell you is that I feel much more joyful now than I did a year ago. Or let's put it in that way. Last year, I had completely forgotten that it's even possible to feel joyful again.
Wow.
I had forgotten that little girl within me that was going out and dance and prance without caring about anything else, as if the world didn't exist. It was just, the world was within her. I'd forgotten about her. She was buried underneath layers and layers of trauma. Trauma had buried her down deep and dirty. When they say diamond in the rough, this is where it comes from. Our diamond in the rough, our joyful soul, comes to the world of form, and if we're not careful, it gets buried under the roughness of the trauma that we go through, which is the byproduct of the world of form. But now I do feel joyful. So if joy is a measure of success, I take it because I do feel a lot more joyful now than I did a year ago. At least I remember it. At least I've been incorporating it more and more into my daily life. When I remembered that feeling, I started to look around and I saw that there are a lot of people that are zombied out, going through the world of form without feeling joyful on the inside. And the first group that presented itself to me was women of color. Because women of color go through excessive layers and layers of traumas that
100%.
Perhaps some other races or some other genders might not be exposed to. I'm not saying this is not a rule.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But women of color, because of the cultural suppression, societal suppressions and conditioning, they go through a little more traumas and they can get buried a little deeper. And if we were to reach out and polish up those women and discover their talents and transforming them from a passive member of the society to an active member of the society where they fulfill their purpose, Imagine how much of a more evolved society we can have. We have hundreds of millions of women of color around the world that are suppressed. They don't know their purpose. They are defined by the cultural or the societal conditioning that they've been following since the time of birth. They're in a box. Imagine if we open that box and say, step into your authentic self. Feel joyful again. Be a part of the world of form, but by stepping into your authentic self. Because when we're born, our soul steps into our body. But this is not our authentic self. This is the body that goes through the conditioning of the society, right? The conditioning of the cultural conditioning. But it's time to get out of that fake self and see, what is it that I am meant for? What is it in this world of form that would give me joy? Exactly. I decided to help those women find their authentic self, because this is what my mentor, Dr. Shefali, and Eckhart Tolle, by the Power of Now, the book Power of Now, helped me discover it in myself. So I feel it feels authentic to me to help others find their joy. And this was not on my bucket list. This was not something that I created on the external world and now I'm fulfilling on the internal world. I didn't choose it, it chose me. I don't even know where the drive and passion comes from, but all I know is that in this world of form, this is the least I can do. Because once I tasted that delicious, delicious taste of joy and remembering myself as a little girl, this is the least I can do for other women of color and women around the world.
Amazing. How can women join your program?
It's Dr. Shefali's program called Evolved. It's a 3-day condensed awakening work of what her and I have been doing together. Amazing. But it's the first wake-up call into waking up from this crazy nightmare of ego that we've been all entangled with. And just see for a second that it is possible to live some other way. So we've sponsored 10 amazing women in need to come to this incredible seminar. We have over 500 people. And it's a 3-day event. I would be there for you to hold your hand and be any kind of support that I can, to hold your hand when you're going through your awakening journey. I want to be there when you first wake up to yourself. When we were little girls, they told us that Sleeping Beauty will wake up once her prince kisses her on the lips.
Right.
Well, let's say the prince was a metaphor.
Yeah,
the prince was the masculine within us that we needed to be kissed by. And I want to be at Evolve and be there for you to cheer for you when you get kissed by the masculine energy within yourself or whatever you're missing out on the inside.
Great. Again, chills. What are you doing with us? I hope more and more women will join your program. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your journey to opening up for us. That was incredible.
And I want to acknowledge you for utilizing your beautiful platform to help others and raising a message that can help other people awaken. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you. Dear viewers, thank you for being with us and see you next week.